This is where your rear seatbelt retractor is for the rear passenger side. These are common to rust out. They get all the dirt clogged up around the brace that used to be here, and any moisture on the other side, so it eats it out. So we're going to be really kind of conservative on this one and cut as close as we can to the damage. It might be a little worse down here and maybe a little bit up here, but we're just going to see what we can do and get it a nice solid weld on that one if we can get it cut out and it doesn't seem to present anymore. Now over here, this flap here, it's actually part of the wheel well, the outer wheelhouse. It comes down, it wraps around, and that's what this is plug welded. And it wraps, there's a lip right underneath here. And this outer lip, where the quarter panel fits to, is all one piece here. Now, all the yellow, with the exception of this, is what is bad. So, all this needs to be cut off, and then we need to replace this piece. This is part of the end of the rocker cap, I guess you could say. So, probably my thinking on this is to go ahead and cut this up here. I have a mark, but I don't pay attention to that mark. I'll probably cut it on this line right here where it bends, and then cut it kind of with the grain of everything here. So come up to probably about here, and then try to remove whatever plug welds are on there, and just try to preserve as much of this piece to cut off and basically make a new one out of it, out of flat steel. So you get your new piece put in there, welded up. You can lay this over top of it and mark where your hole is, and then you get the right size on it. You get your stud with the backing on it, and it'll go back in there just as factory was. So it won't interfere with the way your seat goes in. It won't bind it up in there because you put it over too far and it's into the seat or something else. So just save it. Now this one over here, if I put my fingers in, they go all the way back to where this is. So there's nothing obstructing it here. So if I go to cut into this, it's not going to tear something else up, like a lip or anything back in there. It's pretty much empty. You see these spot welds here, 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 and here. It's boxed in here. There's nothing in that space. So you're free to cut anywhere here. So probably what I'll do, I'll go ahead and just be a little excessive there and go almost to the spot weld. I'm going to cut parallel with this line. Easier to make your new piece, and you know, all that kind of stuff. Try to make as many squares as you can. I couldn't really do it here, though we have a square edge here and here, and then this is kind of the angular stuff. So here we'll try to stay square and cut it that way. And let's see what we can do. I don't want to cut all the way down. I want to actually preserve this lip down here, so we might go all the way to the bottom of it. And if you have to cut some of it out in pieces, like for instance, I need to cut across here, and it's probably going to interfere with this, much in the way that did down there. That's okay. It doesn't destroy it where we can't make a template from. But if you have to take it out in pieces, just keep the pieces together and try to cut them as cleanly as possible. And then cut straight down. Now the other side, where the lip wraps around, fortunately most of that's good, so we're just going to cut into the area where we know we can kind of meld it back in when we make a new piece. Sometimes these are the cases where you might have to break stuff apart. Try not to bend it out of shape like this just sprung loose, but don't try to pack it down or nothing, because then you won't be able to have a template to go off of. And it is important because there's a lot of shape going on there. Okay, so we had that piece right there, and basically just spent about 20 minutes making this piece. Got the hole already. I used the old one, just like I said earlier. You can make a little template, get the hole in the right position. And just did a series of bends, various directions. Just find one place and start. I started with this side here. It has a little bit of a kick right here, about midway up. So I started with that one, and then just basically massage this curve because it's on a curve here. And yeah, and you just trim a little bit away. Kind of give yourself at least a 1/16 of an inch gap all the way around. If you can go up to an 1/8, that'd be even better. And yeah, so we have that piece made. I have one of the bolt anchors. I might be able to fit that one in there, maybe do a couple extra drills here and then spot weld it from the other side. And then I have the two pieces that you saw me break up here. That is basically what went right here, okay? So I went ahead and lined them up, taped them back together, and we will lay out a template on some heavy construction paper and then try to roll it out onto a piece of steel, and then give yourself a little extra, particularly this way. And then you could start folding it around, making some relief cuts possibly, since it is a curve, and then you can ultimately weld them back together if need be. But before we do any of that, we'll lay that down. And we need to worry about this area right here, because I cut this out a while back to see what kind of rust we had back in there. And that's what this piece here is for. And you can see there was a rust hole beginning, so I went ahead and just chopped it out, knowing it would be thin. So since we just got this piece out, it is kind of thin right here. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna continue this. I'm gonna square it up a little bit right along here. It's a little down. I'm gonna square it up, wrap around, same thing down here, and then reform this lip right here. We'll keep this one here, use it as a template. We'll tape it together just like we did the piece I showed you a minute ago. I'm just gonna trim this out, and we'll just flatten it out, draw it out on a piece of steel, and then you can start shaping away on it. So I'll show you a little bit of how I plan to execute this one. I'll have the pieces laying together, and this one here, this little L-shaped one, likes to rock, so I'm trying not to touch it because it want to just like kind of slip away. But what I did over here is I left about 1/16 of an inch, okay? And then I lined this piece up to where the gap on it is very even. And I might push it over just like that, okay? I left a little at top because I know I cut a little into it, so I'll need that extra little bit there. But this is ultimately going to be the piece, right? This is on 16 gauge. That's somewhere in the neighborhood of what they used originally. But I'll go ahead and mark out my simple ones first, my simple dimensions. So I'm going to go down here, and I'm using like a Sharpie, a pen, marker pen type deal. Nice thin line. I'm just kind of sketch that out, and then see how this bend that goes up, it's ultimately needs to lay flat on the piece. So I'm just going to go ahead and just drop it down just a little bit, not where it's completely straight, because you can see it's going to like curve back. So I'll just go a little healthy along that line there. Okay, up here we'll do something similar and just come across to where we are well beyond what we need to get stuff out of the way. I'm going to move that over out of the way, and then this one carefully press down and then roll it back just like that, okay? And since I've rolled that back, I just want a nice little lip along here. It has a little bit of a notch in it, and then go straight up. If you look, there is a notch right there. It's a factory notch. There's a notch here, and see where I went up on the point? And I'm sorry about my usage of hands, I only have two, right? I would have had wrapped a line around the top of this where it would curve around, okay? That comes down there and it goes straight down. So ultimately, there is your full piece right there. We will make a bend. We'll get it cut and start bending and show you how it works. Okay, so here's our piece, right? We got a little scribe along there, and this thing is ultimately pretty square of a bend until about here, then it kind of curves. So what you want to do is put it in, line level with the top of the vise to that point, clamp it down nice and tight. Sometimes if you have to help it, do that, okay? Now, pretty much a 90-degree angle in there, okay? And if we kind of put this back together, this is how we laid it out. Just like that. So this piece needs to come this way. Ball peen hammer. Go back and forth. As it starts to bend down and you're hitting up here towards the edge, you can move down this way towards the middle of the piece. It'll help it from bowing. It'll help keep it flat. And when you get about this far, you can come back towards the seam. About like so. And that little bit that'll be right here, you can put it back in here and accommodate the angle the best you can. Try to center it up. Same deal. Nice and tight. And then proceed to do pretty much the same thing, but instead of coming out here, you just come back here since it's such a small area. No need to go all the way yet, but this pretty much takes care of it, okay? If you want, you can put this back in here since it kind of flares it. Put it back in here, about yay far. It helps kind of neutralize that bow that it put in it, okay? So there's your piece. Fairly simple deal. Again, here's the old one. It feels obviously much, much thinner. So here's your new one. Like so. Like so. And this is going to be a little big, which is good. You'd rather trim off than have to add to, which is nearly impossible. So here's our piece. Lay it in here. We have a little bit of a bend here. That's what this is. Put a little bit of that angle. And I need to put just a hair more. But you can see at the very, very bottom, we have a nice little gap down here. If you square it up that, put it fairly close up against this, you can see where you're good here, but then we have too much material. That's good. So we just kind of flash and you can see that's where I made this mark, okay? So I'm ultimately just gonna trim this off, give this just a hair more bend, and we'll see where we fit on that. So pretty good. Over here, where my index finger is, the piece is a little long, so we'll trim it up here. And again, we're just gonna conform to what's around it. So if I set it about there, and you can go either way. If this is particularly bad, which actually, let's take it out of this. You can take it out either way, but this also isn't very straight. Not that that matters, but it might help uniform it a little bit. And if I square this up with where it belongs right here, bring it up, we're good on the bottom. I'll just take this pin and score that line until it opens up right down there. So this, we're going to trim that out. So again, we want that little gap there, so I'm still too tight for that gap. It looks really good, but if you go to weld it, it might warp or not get all the way penetration. So I'm just going to go along that same path I just did and just shave it back a little bit. Okay, so the area that's hanging it up is right down here in the very bottom corner. You kind of get a look at how the lip rolls around there. And then it gives you a flange for your new piece of the wheel well arc to fit in there and weld up. So the last piece in this ensemble is a very complicated wheel lip. rolls down, kind of a U channel. And I've got that out over here. Now if you look what we've got, this black line here and the black line over here, that represents me folding it out or rolling it so I can do like we did on the last piece, okay? But as you can tell, it actually gives us a very false reading, because when I did that, I marked it out and I went ahead and took the piece that actually has all the U-bend and the curve in it. I hammered it flat, and then this piece was already flat, so that was my base of what to come off of, right? So if you lay that there, that's going to be really true. That's going to be very honest to you. So this piece obviously was connected to it, and right there, that's how it was, okay? If you notice when you flatten it out, it'll give you a very different, about 3/4 of an inch difference there, and ultimately about 3/4 of an inch difference there. There's just the curvature, the shape of it really throws it off that way, okay? So flattening it out after you do this is going to give you your true reading. Now you'll have to bend it back. That's going to be the second hardest part. But where the blue line is, that's our cut. This is just referencing where the big bend in it, the big sharp bend in it, and then we'll have to make our others, obviously. This is all going to work here. We'll cut around where the blue is, and then we should have our piece. Got a brand new piece of steel here, 16 gauge, nice and thick, and we will get that ready to go. All right, the piece is cut out, just like that. These represent all the bends, and you can see them here. This ultimately did like this, not that way, but this. So this part here is actually the part you'd see from the side of the car. This is the actual lip that was rolled in like that, and this part went into the back cap end of the rocker panel. And then the other piece, like I said, right here. So ultimately, there's the layout right about there, okay? So we can lay this aside, but not too far, because we want to use it as a reference. We have our marks. It's pretty straight here, and so that's fairly straight. That's pretty straightforward here. So we can start massaging this, and it already has relief cuts in it. Right here's one of them. Down here's another one. And this is kind of a sub relief cut here. All right, that just allows it to find its way. So while this remains flat here, we could start bending this one first. Here we are. Aside from maybe some really small touch-up, this is it. And it looks a little ugly, but I would say it's probably going to be very functional. This right here might have to get bent a little more sharper right there where I'm scratching it. But that's an easy, you just grab it. It's like some vice grips or something and pull it over. But let's touch it to the car here. So we have our perimeter. It'll weld there all the way around, top in this notch here. And if we stand back a little bit, you can see how it's gonna, if you float it a little bit, it's gonna go right into that arc. See that? And then our tab is in place, how it was originally. So if you come around here, since it's not perfectly formed yet, there are many areas that it intersects nicely, like right up here where the magnets are holding it, and actually from about here over to here. So I want to tack those places first, then I can get it strong enough in those places to manipulate like an area like this to push back, because it's standing out about 1/8 of an inch. So just little things like that. Try to do the flat stuff first that's cooperating, and then you can work the rest of it around. This area here is a little far back, so all these corners up here are pretty good. So I'll just go from there. And once it's strong, like I said, you can go through and work that into place. seal puller, and then you could pull it out a little at a time, like so. Alright, so that's in, this is in, and that leaves pretty much this piece. Here we go. We're all welded in. It's gonna need smoothed out. But here it is. I started with this part right here first on this panel. We did the plug welds, stitched it up, left this hanging, and then proceeded to tack this. And then this was off this way. So I went ahead and made a relief cut so that it would, because they was touching each other, they was overlapping. So I was able to bend this over, put a clamp on it to where it was flush with this, flush on the outside. All right, obviously outside of the car here, the outer wheel lip where the quarter panel is, and you're looking towards the front of the car. This is just like the other side. This is where the seatbelt brace was, and stuff got in behind there and rotted the wheel well section out. Also, at some point, maybe just the whole thing fell out. When I had this car, this was gone. It did not have the bolt, the brace, anything. It was almost just like this, okay? So this one rots down into here, but see, there's really, I can put my whole set of fingers here up and behind it, and it touches the floor pan. So there's a flange here, and it wraps in a curve like this. So we'll want to knock out a couple of spot welds here, and we'll cut this area up here, over here, and down right next to the flap seam here. And this piece, same thing. We'll have to cut this out and then pretty much do what we did on the other side on the outer section, but this just goes a little deeper on this piece. And then we'll put our bracing in.
They sang the love theme from Top Gun.
As I squeeze myself in this wheel well between the camera and the car, I've got the two pieces cut from our patterns that we made. Obviously this one will be the difficult one and has proven its usual challenges of just trying to get the bend relative to the old piece. So I'll take the old piece and lay it up on here and try to square it up with the cuts and make sure that this is not protruding further than the lip of the old one. Okay, let me show you. So here's the old piece. I went ahead and hacked off the lip up here because this is just what we're taking from. And you see how I have this like zigzag cut right here. If I square that up on there where it should just go directly in, you have to have it flush with that, because if it sticks out too far when you go to put your quarter panel on, it might push it out and it won't line up down here. So you have to, for instance here I had to cut a little relief and then bend this to get the whatever curve I can. Now when I hold that up there, it's still out actually about 1/4 of an inch at this apex here. So what I can do is either cut it here and here and just try to bring it all in a little bit, and then you just weld it back together once you're finished and get it all straightened out. Or you could pull this piece, I just have it clamped on here right now, and you could take it over there and try to dolly it down, because for one thing, it's not, this face right here is not completely parallel with the car, so to speak. It kind of bends out, so you can actually take something and bend it a little further to where it'll drag it in that way, and it should take some more of that out. Then you just keep checking it with this old piece and just try to, it looks relatively flat there, but it actually has a nice little curve, and it's a little different from that one. So I'm going to have to just work on this lip and try to get it to push in a little bit more and have a bit of a curve to it, so it's just more natural progression. This piece here is good. I just have it clamped in there, and this one kind of clamps over top of it. So if I pull it out like so, you have your lip so you can spot weld to it all the way up to here along that L shape, and then you just do a couple plug welds there, and then you stitch weld it in all up here and then smooth that all out. Okay. Just a thin coat, okay? Nothing crazy.
Other chicanery included the theft of seed. Plymouth was accused of using the store's steam lantern to press his own shirt. The judge dismissed the whole matter as frivolous.
All right, so we got this piece burned in. I went ahead and did some weld through primer here, and I did a weld here. I had to actually drill the hole after the fact. I used a spot weld driller to get the hole on the surface here. Welded that, sanded it down real quick, and then hit it with weld through primer. Now we can take the other piece and go over top of it, the one that wraps around here. So that'll be next. We'll eventually dress this out, get it clean. I actually did the other side too, since this will have a seat belt anchor, and we want that nice and solid, nice and safe. So keep that in mind when you're doing areas like this. So you can see this is in. We've got a spot weld. I actually need to clean that one up. That's pretty yucky looking weld. But got these into the cap into the rocker. These three, that one there, and it's got the weld through on the back of it, the spray. Now this here, I let it hang because sometimes it's hard to predict where it needs to fold exactly. So it's been folded once, and it looks like it should be good. I've got the two plug weld holes ready to go in it. So with that said, make sure that's nice and snug. A little bit of emptiness in that hole. Bit of noise, and then we'll plug it in with some weld, and that'll be done. So there we go. See it with the contour. Obviously it needs cleaned up, as all these welds do. You just kind of see the progression right here. Okay, and it's about the same width all the way down. It kind of widened out there originally, and so I just kind of stayed with that because that's how the pattern dictated it. And then here we have our tab, just like on the other side, and about 5/8 of an inch roughly all the way around. I'll probably clean up some of these, fill these back in, and then kind of square them back out. They're puckered down from where we pulled around on it and all that kind of good stuff. But that's pretty much how I got it all welded into place. I'm gonna fill this in. Actually, I kind of left that open. But like I said, I tacked it here real good and tacked it here. And I wasn't sure quite how it'd work with me, but as I was able to kind of move things around, I was able to weld these up and procure that curve, okay? So I went ahead and just had some tacks there. And what I had to do was the new piece, and then the old part here was overlapping in areas, so I had to take a flathead screwdriver and just kind of put it in there and pry it, and then twist it around until you got them about flush. You could put one of your clamps on it, one of your C clamps, and then tack around it, and then just proceed to do that down through here. Just move whatever needs to get in the direction it looks right, and so it kind of scoops in there and kind of finds its own shape. So happy with that. I think it'll clean up good, finish it out there a little bit, and we will get all of that dressed out on the next episode. You'll see how smooth it all come out, and then we'll put the seat belt anchors in, all that good stuff. And then I'll probably go ahead and work on these right here. Those will be next, both sides. All right. You get these done, you're knocking out quite a bit of the damage here. And you know, we have a lot up there, but before we can do the trunk floor, we'll have to get the perches around the frame rails and part of the frame rail itself on this side fixed. So I'll probably just kind of work that direction around the back, and it'll almost knock out the whole rear of the car from about the back side of this door jamb post here back will be like ready to go. So excited about that, and it'll just leave like firewall and cowl and just rough spots here and there. Okay, so that'll be on part 3, 72 Duster rebuild. Make sure you like and subscribe and follow us and share, because hopefully this can help somebody out.